In science writing, we also have some do's and the don'ts. In science writing and reporting, one must be careful of these do's and the don'ts. The list given is not exhaustive, but still it explains what is to be followed. Now first let us discuss the do's while writing the science related issues. First, keep it simple, very important. You cannot confuse your readers, you need to keep it very simple. Use a simple headline, use a story with a good introduction so that people will read the introduction and they will be keen to read the other part of your story. So in generally when you are writing for articles in any say newspaper or magazine or for journal, it can be within the standard limit of say 1500 or sometimes it is less than that, 750 words. So within that you have to introduce your subject, you have to bring out the benefits and the problems, the issues in that, everything, and you need to have an ending for your story also. So it is just like a film which has three important layers. One is the introduction of the character, and there is in the middle when there is a sort of a climax that builds up where the audience, they are hooked to that movie, and comes the end of the movie, that is the final part of the movie. So for 3 hours you are watching a movie. Why? Because the content, the information which is there in the film helps the audience to keep watching it and to keep understanding what is happening in the film. Similarly, that is the magic of the director, or that is the magic of those actors that compel the audience to keep watching the film. Similarly, you are also the director of your own writer. So you are the director, you are the actor, you are the producer, you are everything about your own article. So in that case you need to think that what should be your first introduction, why your introduction should be simple, why your introduction should be very interesting so that people will understand it or people will read it. Similarly, you should have a middle portion of your writing where you will be telling about, giving more information, it is going to be more descriptive, and there has to be an ending of your story where people can understand, okay, we are going to the end of the story. So that is a simple structure of your write-up. So you need to keep it simple. The second point is you must cover all the aspects of the issue. So suppose you are writing for menstruation issues, which is these days is like much talked about issue. Now when you are talking about menstruation issue, then you'll have to cover all the aspects of the issue. Whether menstruation is considered as a taboo, menstruation has some cultural implications, menstruation has some scientific implications, all these aspects you have to cover. So you give a broader idea of your subject, you are not concentrating on a very streamlined topic. You give them the idea of a broader aspect, at the same time you bring down your content to in a more streamlined way. And the outcome and the impact is also important. The reason is that if you are talking about a scientific discovery or say about the Vikram lander, or you're talking about how this Mars activity is going on by NASA or by ISRO, all this if we talk, then we also need to talk about the outcomes, what has happened after Vikram lander lost, or how it was recovered, or what has happened actually, what was the default, what was the technical glitch in that. So that outcome and the result is also very important so that people stay informed about the issues. The third point is always present the information clearly. You should not make too many information. If you are using one information, then stick to that information and keep it simple. Fourth, cross-verify the information beforehand. So if you are writing on some issue, whether it is on health or medicine or any issue, then you need to cross-verify the information. Suppose you are writing on coronavirus, then you have to be very much well informed about what is coronavirus, what sort of virus it is, and from where it originated, the reason for its development, everything. So you need to do a proper research and you need to cross verify. Maybe the books that you have read or the magazines that you have referred, they do not have the enough material or they are not sufficient for your write-up. Then in that case you need to cross verify the information with some medical practitioners, you can cross verify with some scientific bodies, you can cross verify with some researchers who are working on that. So that helps to give an accurate information to the audience or to the readers, otherwise they will get some wrong information, which should not be the case. The point is that the idea should be to inform people about something new. It is a very challenging role because we have to keep learning and we have to keep producing something new. It is not that we give the same information again and again. So if there is a development in the case of coronavirus, that itself is the important point that you are giving today or maybe tomorrow. So that is where the important your strategy should be, that whatever be the issue, but any new development comes out to be the something new for the readers. Point number 6, always have an intended audience. You cannot give the same information to everybody. That is what we discuss about the first part, that is the communication process. So if it is information about kids, then you should make your content like that. If the information is for women, then your content should be like that. If the information is for, say, differently abled people, then your content should be like that. So according to your audience or according to your readers, your content, your write-up should also be aimed for that. Point number 7, science writers must understand the society and culture to deliver best coverage of society, best coverage of stories. Point number 7, science writers must understand the society and culture to deliver better coverage of stories. So I have repeatedly said about this that it's very important that you understand your society, you understand the culture of the people, culture of the community, then only you will be able to impart that education. Point number 8, one must be well informed and well read. Before writing for science, you should be well read. You must have read the content, and at the same time you must be well informed. So you need to do a lot of research before writing. Point number 9, one must be creative. Yes, that is the trick of writing a good piece, because if you are creative, you can engage your readers, you can engage your audience, and it will become a good source of inspiration for other science writers also to write in a different way. Because if you are unique and if you are different, then people like to read, people like to know more about it. Point number 10, to make people aware of everyday science and build scientific temperament. So it is not that we will talk about some scientific discoveries that is happening inside the laboratory, but we can talk about everyday life science. So there we finished the do's of the science writing part. Let us move to the don'ts that we are not supposed to do. The first point is avoid factual mistake. One has to be very, very careful when you are reporting or writing for science article, that you should not make any mistakes on that. There should not be any factual errors, because if you make those factual errors, then the people will get misinformed, and that should not be the case. Point number 2, do not use too many technical jargons. Generally, when we talk of science, they have their own language, they have their own language, they have their own technical terms. So that write-up should not be full of those jargons only, or of those content only that you do not understand. So it has to be very simplified. Third, the write-up should not be full of graphs and facts only, that it has only percentages and the statistics that this many people died because of this disease, this many people are affected because of this. So those numbers, the ratios and the graphs and the statistics should not be overloaded to the audience or the readers. It should be kept minimum so that it has a balanced percentage of statistics and also the general information. Point number 4, it should not be too lengthy also. Your write-up should be within a say limit of 750 or 1000 words, which is good enough for people to understand depending on the issue. If the issue is of a very larger importance, then the content will also be little elaborative way, and if the content is not so say important, then that the length may differ. But yes, but you should not keep it too lengthy, that it should not be have like 2-3 pages and pages of your write-up. It should be small and sweet. Point number 5, you need to avoid repetition. You cannot or you should not repeat the same sentences or the idea, otherwise people will get bored, people won't read your content. So you should keep it in a very short and a simpler manner. Point number 6, not to hurt anyone's cultural practices or beliefs. So while you are writing for a cause, or when you are writing for a scientific development, then the idea is that you are imparting the information to inform people, not to hurt anyone's sentiments. So make sure that you understand the cultural diversity, religious diversity and everything, and then you write. Point number 7, it should not be biased. So because you believe in science and you are practitioners of science, so you are writing in that manner where the non-science audience or the non-science readers may feel they may feel cornered, or they may feel out of the blue. So that should not happen. So it should be in a very fair and a balanced manner you have to write. It should not look like partial. It should not be biased. So dear learners, you must have understand the points that we have stated now. So the thumb rule of science writing is to present it logically. There has to be a logical flow. What you write in the introduction, what you write in the middle part of your write-up, there has to be a chronology, there has to be a flow to that, so that the readers can connect what has happened. And there should not be any overlapping of the information, so that the readers or the audience, they feel that what is happening, you should not confuse your readers. The content needs to properly balance both sides of the views. It should have a balance and should not be partial in nature, as I have discussed. The language for the write-up depends upon the audience. So if you're writing for kids, then the language, the mode of delivery, it is going to change. It can be in English, Hindi or original language, but the writing should be very, very simple and clear. But one should keep one thing which is very important, is that not to hurt any community or individual's cultural identity. You should not make those comments, or you should not compare anything related to that. The science writing should be understood by the readers, and you should not have many technical jargons. It should not confuse the readers. So friends, you must be able to understand that science writing is interesting, and you must have read many science write-ups, whether in your local newspapers like the Assam Tribune, on the Horizon, that's the Sunday supplement. You find that they come up with interesting stories written whether by some known science writers or by some upcoming science writers. It can be a contribution from a renowned science writer. So what they are trying basically is to keep informing people about the recent development that takes place in the science. So let us now move to the bigger aspect of this writing, is that writing is an art. It is something that somebody does it in a very beautiful way, and some they may not be able to do it in that way, because science writing itself is an art, and it needs experience and also creativity to write effectively. One needs to be creative to write anything. You must have observed that all of us like stories, all of us like to watch movies, all of us like to watch fiction films or non-fiction films. But why some films are so popular and why some films are not so popular among the audience? Because sometimes what happens, the way the story has been told or the way the information has been written in newspaper, it catches our attention, it attracts us. So there is the magic that involves imagination, that involves creativity in science writing communication. The simpler and clearer the language, it helps readers to understand better. Writing science doesn't mean only text. One can use graphics and diagrams to show or explain the same point. It is sometimes very difficult to write about, say, diseases or introduction to new medical discovery, but the science writer should be able to make a connect between the common man and the latest discovery in a very simpler manner. For example, recent coronavirus issue in China, a common man needs to be made aware of the basic characteristic of the disease and the precaution one must take to avoid the spread of the disease or control the disease. Recently I was reading news that has been posted by one of my friend who stays in Delhi, and it says that there are some people who are selling those hand sanitizers or some mask in some of the areas of the Delhi, where they are selling it in the name of that if you use these products then you can control coronavirus or you can keep yourself safe. But again, this kind of this information or this practice can be harmful also, because they are doing it illegally or they are doing it without any government certification. So the common people, they will think that yes, if I use this sanitizer or if I use this mask then I will be safe. There it's a problem. So there is an area where you can create content, you can write that these are the things or this should be the precaution that one needs to take to avoid coronavirus. So the idea is that science is not only for scientists, or science is not only meant for understanding space and the health and the medicine, but science is for common people. That is where the connection is built up between a science writer and a science practitioner or a scientist. Let us now move to the language for science communication. What should be the language for science communication? When we talk of the basic language, the language is one of the basic needs in any form of communication. It is whether it is a sign language or it is a textual script. You can use sign languages also, or you can have the textual script. In case of science communication also, the language for communication should be very simple. It should be free of technical jargons and it should be very, very direct. Depending on the intended audience, one should decide which language to be used and why. For example, suppose you are assigned to do a campaign on health and sanitation in a tribal area of Assam. You need to decide what will be your message and in which language you are going to disseminate the message. It is not necessary that you must be an expert in that language, but you may facilitate the message in the local dialect of the selected community. At the same time, it is necessary to take into consideration the diverse age groups, gender, religious affiliations, socio-cultural norms, and behavior of the community. The content and the flow of information for a school-going kid will certainly be different in compared to an adult. It is essential to note that while disseminating knowledge on health and sanitation, the idea is not to tell what they are doing is wrong or right, but to generate the scientific understanding in adopting certain behaviors for a disease-free life. It is also needed to understand that there will be resistance in accepting the new idea, but there lies the effective use of language in making people understand the purpose. However, the objective is to transfer the message, information in the most simple and direct manner. So you must have understood by now that the language plays an important role. Writing is an art, and the do's and the don'ts for writing science write-ups. So you as a science writer, you have a lot of responsibility. You need to keep reading about the latest development. You need to keep writing. That is the only thumb rule. More you write it in an effective manner. Now let us move to the part of while you are covering any science and technology event, that also comes under science communication. Any development in any technology, any development in science related events, that is also under science communication. Recently we have celebrated National Science Day, and on National Science Day you must have seen information on newspapers and televisions where different schools and colleges, they have organized different events. Even in Tezpur University we celebrated National Science Day, and we had a special program called as Insignis, in which different students, the schools from different students from different schools, they have participated. There have been science quizzes, there have been science photography, there have been science exhibitions. So all these events are also part of science communication. So when a school going kid comes and attends a science exhibition or a fair, he or she gets an idea that what science is for and how science attracts people. You see new models or new structures that has come up for science. So that helps generating these ideas and think innovative. So science technology and science technological events, these are very common these days. You will see a lot of fairs and exhibition that happens in different parts of the world. Especially the idea is to promote science. So National Science Day is one important day when there is a lot of coverage. Even if you are clicking photographs on Science Day and you are clicking science, you are doing science photography, that itself is like you are popularizing science. If you are clicking photographs of some birds, you are clicking photographs of some experiments, that itself is that you are imparting some information. So for a science writer, it is not necessary that you always write things in text, but you can use visuals, you can use some pictures also to impart education. So these days the coverage of science and technology events are an important area to inform, educate and entertain people. But let us say there are gadget models, any mobile model, or whether it is a car model or whether it is a laptop model. These all are technological gadgets that have come up. Any news on say this 4G connection or 3G connection, this many RAM, this Android model, this all are information for the common people only. That's why the way they write it is, the idea is to give them the information, what is the new latest technology, how it is going to benefit your life, how it is going to benefit you, and what are the price ranges for that product, and where should you go and to buy this product. So this simple information for common people helps them to find out what product they should buy, whether they should buy an Android phone, whether they should buy a non-Android phone, what are the benefits, what are the advantages. So that itself is a way of popularizing science. It is also important that you tell them about new medical achievements. It can be related to climate and the environment, which is another a very important area these days, that you keep informing about environment and the climate. The news reports on say global warming, the news reports on deforestation, the news reports on sudden wildfires. These are some of the examples that you see or you must have read recently in most of the media coverage. The logic is to keep people informed about the latest technology and life on space. The recent approach or the policy by the government of India regarding sustainable development goals, this also falls under that, where there is a constant attempt to tell people that you should save earth, you should save climate for having a sustainable life. So that itself is a mandate from United Nations, that is a mandate that we are also following, and especially even in Tezpur University we have cut down a lot of plastic waste. We have totally banned plastic inside the campus. So that itself is a way of understanding that plastic is not good for environment, because takes years and years, or in most of the cases it doesn't get decomposed. So this little steps or action can also give information and impart people that science is part of our life. So we cannot stay cut off from the science. So if we have stopped using plastic, that itself is one contribution to the science. So if somebody writes a write up on this, that itself will be an example of writing for science, where you are telling people that you should not use plastics. Whether it is the print media or electronic media, you can contribute your write-ups, you can contribute your ideas, and only thing is that you'll have to understand who will be your audience. So if the audience is the learned one, then your content would be a little different. If the audience is not the literate section of the society, then the content should be different. So that's how you are going to utilize your content, your idea and creativity to impart education. And that is where there has been the development of this field that is called as science journalism. And science journalism is not a very new concept. It has developed long back, but the popularity has increased over the time. Science journalism is not a new concept. Reporting of science should be done by extremely experienced ones who is either from the science field, a practitioner or an expert, as it will help in giving a balance and a fair reporting on the issue. Because if somebody is experienced and somebody has a background of science, then they will be able to give a fair and balanced reporting. Taking into consideration the societal, economic, cultural aspect, the reporting should be done very carefully. And while doing science journalism, one should try to make the content more interesting, not too much of scientific information. That is the overall idea. The point that I want to discuss in this remaining section of the lecture is that do's and the don'ts for science reporting. Let us first understand what should we do for science reporting. There is a need for proper research on the subject. You should do a proper research on the subject. The reporting should be objective. It should not be biased. It should have both sides of the information. Reporting science stories, it is always important to consult a science expert or a practitioner, because you are writing the content, but you need to refer, you need to contact those the concerned resource persons. It should be balanced and unbiased. Reporting must state on the benefits for the state or the humankind. It should reflect that how it is going to benefit the science, the human beings. The language for reporting should be simple and it should be straight. The language for reporting depends on the audience. Cross-verify the information always. Science should be made understandable to listeners. The idea is to make it more enjoyable. It should not be dull, it should not be boring. And there is a need for regular training and workshop for reporters. All these reporters who are writing for science, they must be attending some sort of workshops or seminars so that they also upgrade their thinking, they also upgrade their approach, and that helps in bringing out the new ways of writing and reporting for science. They may go to some other parts of the country where they can do these workshops and attend the workshops, and they learn it and they impart it, because everybody needs to upgrade their skills and their talents. In science reporting, the idea is not only to talk about the latest discovery or invention, but to make people understand the relation of the discovery with the society. Many a times there lies a gap and we need to avoid, or we need to look for alternative. So to avoid the science reporters must do proper research of the subject and take out the element which is required for reporting. Similarly, let us have a look into the don'ts for science reporting. Never mislead the audience. You should not mislead your audience. You should not give them wrong information. Avoid factually incorrect information. If the information, the facts that you have gathered is incorrect, you should always correct it. Do not put too many information in one report. You should not confuse the readers. Again and again I am stressing on the point, because you need to keep them, you need to give them some space to understand what the new content is. Do not make it like a scientific report or like a scientific write-up in a science journal. It should be for common people. So the last part of my today's lecture would be understanding this part of creating a scientific attitude among masses. The first point is on scientific temper. You must have heard of this word quite often, that we need to have or we need to generate scientific temper. So what basically scientific temper means is that it's necessary to achieve the goals for development, and that's what I referred about sustainable development goals. And being a responsible citizen of a country, one must develop this scientific thinking or reasoning ability, whether it is health, environment, society, culture, medicine or technology. They all contribute in developing a mature society. Science communication, that's why, is a platform to make awareness, to make masses aware of the developing latest developments and to implement in a scientific manner. Only after India's independence, late Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru encouraged people to have scientific temperament and for the benefit of the society. But when we say we need to raise scientific temperament, there has been always a clash between this traditional school of people and this modern school of people. There has been a constant struggle, and the traditional group of people, they do not want to accept technology. If you have watched this movie Naya Daur, which itself is a classic example to understand the this conflict between the common man and a more modern man who learns or who understands that technology is important for development. So in that movie Naya Daur, it clearly states that how the villagers were not ready to accept technology, and they were not ready to accept technology because they felt that there is a loss of there will be a loss for livelihood, there will be a loss for their jobs, whereas the mechanics or machines or technology is more good for the benefit of the society to work or to bring out the work in a more effective and a less time consuming manner. So whenever we have to understand scientific temperament, or we have to understand why there is a conflict between the traditional school and the modern school, then it is always better to watch this film Naya Daur, where you can understand what has happened between these two groups of people. So the idea is that one has to rationally understand that why science is important, how science can benefit our life, and what are the pros and the cons. So we should always check this out. Then comes the major problem for all these issues, why the science is still not so developed in our country, in our society. Though it has developed, we have reached to the moon, we have reached to the space, we have done a lot of discovery, we have contributed a lot. But in coming to the superstitious beliefs and the practices, superstitious beliefs need to be logically explained so that people practices them can understand and think rationally. To have a developed society, one must come out with evil practices that not only stops development of a society but also the entire human race. For example, we have some problems, evil problems like witch hunting in Assam, which actually is an ill practice and that needs to be stopped. There is a belief that this widow, old lady or the old widows, they are a problem, they spread some sort of negativity in the society, so they should be killed. So this is totally irrational and that doesn't have any logic, but that practice is going on, and many people have lost their lives, and many such cases have been reported within Northeast and within Assam. So that is one of the example of stating witch hunting. Then we have issues on menstruation, where during those periods of time a girl or a woman is not allowed to go into the temple, they are not allowed to have food with the entire community, they are allowed to sleep separately. So these practices are there. These are some sort of, again, cultural practices. They has been going on over tradition, but now there is a time to generate this idea that that scientific temperament should be developed, that menstruation is not a crime, it is not a disease, it is just a biological process, and one should not hate that process, but one should accept that process, because that itself is an identity of a woman, and that itself is an identity of a human being. So that is very important. So let us sum up this lecture today. I hope that it is clear by now that the science communication is an important and academic discipline that can help reaching to the intended audience. To practice science communication, one must be able to understand the communication process, do's and don'ts in scientific writing and reporting, skills of a science writer, language used for science communication, and promote scientific temperament and scientific writing. Thank you so much for listening to this video lecture. I would love to have your comments and feedback on this lecture. Thank you.